we've seen of Kashtira, but I think we really wanted to check out his opponent, who is on MathMech, with featuring some of these brand new firewall cards. Quite a heavy inclusion of the firewall defender in the main deck, as well as the combo that I suppose it's trying to end on is the terahertz, and the fusion that it sends to the graveyard with the D-Save Worm.
Yeah, I think it's really cool to add a little bit of extra spice to the MathMech deck, because I feel like you end up with a lot of link materials and I suppose not necessarily the ability to do that much with it. So I'm kind of excited to see now extending the MathMech deck a little bit further. But right now it's Marcus's turn, and he started off with probably the best opener for the Kashtira deck, I would say, is the Unicorn.
Yeah, Kashtira Unicorn going to lose a little bit of consistency soon, I think, with the semi-limit. So happy to open it as much as he can this weekend, I'm sure Marcus is. Valor probably the best interaction against it, because he also has Ash Blossom, which you might be able to see here.
Nice thing about Valor is that the effect is negated and all of the effects are negated. So if you used Ash Blossom, then you lose a card from your extra deck.
Yeah,
whereas with the Valor, it negates all of the effects. Marcus again with that extra shiny Fenrir.
Beautiful ultimate rare from the OTS, the Kashtira, the Kashtira Fenrir. And actually hard draws the Birth there for the extra normal summon. If you search with... Oh, okay. This puts him in a precarious position here with this Ash Blossom. Do we want to negate? He is indeed going to also negate.
It doesn't feel good.
It does not feel good at all, does it? But like, you have to, right?
But you, I mean, when else are you going to use it? Like, maybe if your opponent has a Prosperity. Do you reckon Marcus has just actually got the Rise Heart as well in his hand? That'd be... Just like you can.
Oh, okay then.
You can negate my cards.
That's the full combo through 2 hand traps.
Yeah.
Just hard drawing the correct pieces there.
It's even better, really, because that way you've like traded cards in your hand for cards in your opponent's hand.
Gosh.
Which you wouldn't like. Sometimes opening a full hand of Kashtira cards can be a bit awkward.
Yeah.
Because, you know, obviously you can lock more zones, but that's kind of risky if there's a Nibiru or a Kaiju to undo the zone lock. But in this case, it's just. Yeah, it's great if your opponent is willing to, well, it kind of has to trade the cards from their hand for not really very much value. And we see it here, I always find this interaction quite funny, where you try and destroy your own Kashtira Rise Heart with the field spell. But it's only so that you can use its effect to detach a material and save itself from being destroyed. I always just find it just looks quite silly, doesn't it? You're like, yeah, I'm going to destroy my own monster that's like really powerful and blocking you from using a monster zone.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and it also has the added benefit of detaching it, getting it in there to bring it back with the Birth, which allows you to have an extra body and continue playing here with the Diablosis, and that's going to be a full 5-zone lock here. And I think Louis considering conceding here to
before showing away the extra deck?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite threatening, isn't it? It's like, I'm going to look at your extra deck and banish a card. And you have to think, like, am I going to have a good chance of winning this game? And I guess if not, you don't really want to show your opponent your extra deck, because the extra deck is really kind of the heart of a lot of decks. And he's packed it up. Okay.
A very quick and fast game number 1. I mean, I suppose that's the hands of a champion, realistically. Literally.
The hands like the moving, or the hands of the drawing? That's
the ability to zone lock for 5 through 2 hand traps, when the hand traps were arguably used as correct as they could be, I think, yeah. Right?
I don't think there's much, like, they are pretty low impact in that situation, aren't they? But I think you have to run them, and I don't think he's done anything wrong. It shows kind of the downside, maybe, of Effect Veiler over a card like Infinite Impermanence, because if you use Effect Veiler, first of all, you have to use it before your opponent summons a Rise Heart, otherwise it can't be used, because it has to be sent to the graveyard as a cost. And second of all, if you have Infinite Impermanence, you can wait until your turn and then just turn off the Arise Heart in your turn, which is possibly a little bit more useful than Effect Veiler, where you kind of just have to throw it at one of the Kashtira monsters that they've special summoned and see if it annoys them.
It can be very annoying, I suppose, and sometimes shows the true downsides of these mid-range decks like MathMech, where you play all these very low-impact hand traps, but you play so many of them that you're kind of just throwing them out into the wind there and putting your opponent on better have it. And sometimes they have it.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have it.
Yeah, because I guess these types of hand traps, like Droll and Valor, which kind of just stop one thing, they just negate an effect, but they don't destroy any monsters. So if your opponent has the follow-up, then they can still use those monsters, which obviously Marcus did there to great effect.
So I think if my opponent activates Ash Blossom, it doesn't tell me a lot about their deck. But if they also activate Ash Blossom and Valor, it tells me they're playing a heavy hand trap sort of deck. And I think Valor probably starts to kind of trickle down like the ranking system of hand traps that you would play. So I feel like I would probably ascertain that they're maybe not playing Kashtira, because I think Kashtira doesn't really play a ton of hand traps, maybe Ash Blossom, but it's usually things like Books, things like Eclipse, things like Shifter. So I think you can probably expect that it's not the mirror, at least.
Yeah, I think maybe your sleuthing powers are maybe too far for this. I don't know. I mean, I get your point, but it's a bit of a, like, I don't know, what does that mean you're side decking if you're maybe saying it's maybe not.
So that's the issue that Marcus is in, right? It's like, what do you side deck
Well,
now?
that was kind of the point. I mean, it's a small solace that your opponent doesn't know what you're running when you've lost game one. I would happily win game one and show my opponent my cards, but, you know.
The funny thing here, actually, is Marcus is playing Ghost Bell, which is a very niche card that you would probably not bring in against anything except Mathmech and probably Labyrinth as well. But the fact that Ghost Bell is in here is extremely powerful, because that is a very, very important point to stop the trap card, the Super Factorial. All right, and we're going into game number 2 here. Louis is probably going to start us off with Mathmech going first here. Maybe those hand trap strategy of going second. I mean, it wasn't his choice, obviously, but it clearly wasn't enough. So gets a chance to go. Oh, did he just?
Was that just a pass?
No way. There's no way.
It looked a lot like a pass.
I'm looking at his hand here, and there's just a lot of. Is that triple Valor? There's double Valor.
2 Valors, a Talents.
Oh, that's why Talents feels kind of rough sometimes, because you have to be able to play.
Yeah, you have to be able to play and have your opponent stop you. I think it's one of those cards like you keep it in your deck going first. It's not like super critical going first.
Kashtira Fenrir comes in, activating the effect to search. Well, here's hand trap number 1. Okay, Marcus
is very happy in this situation.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, he brought in Duster, actually. That's pretty interesting.
It's pretty generic, I think, if you're going second. Like most decks, with the one exception of Super Heavy Samurai, probably will say. I mean, even as you were saying, like a very important piece of interruption in this deck is the Super Factorial, and it's not beautiful against the Super Factorial, but at least it makes them activated immediately and not be able to get the extra benefit of sending a monster you control to the graveyard.
You're a math whiz, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to explain to me really quick what a factorial is? A super factorial, rather?
I don't know what a super factorial is. I could explain what factorial is, but I suppose I might bore some of the viewers. But, you know, 1 factorial is 1, 2 factorial is 2 times 1, and 3 factorial is 3 times 2 times 1, and then you keep going. So they get very big very fast. Okay. I don't know what it means when you make it super. It should have an exclamation mark.
Well, it clearly gains a negate. That's what it does.
Exactly.
Sure.
But yeah, factorial is denoted with an exclamation mark, so...
Oh, I thought it was just mathematicians being really excited.
No, so if you write like 25 exclamation mark, that means 25 factorial. So it should I hope it has an exclamation mark.
So it isn't like,
I haven't like checked it. But
all right, so it doesn't mean like Diablosis banished 25, right? Not like that.
That would be no. If Diablosis banished 25, that would be a lot of cards.
That would be the end of the game.
That would be that's more cards than you can run in a Yu-Gi-Oh deck by quite a long way.
What are we talking about? Question, why do we banish the Birth instead of the Big Bang? Oh, Lord, this is really rough here.
You banish Birth, so if you get another Rise Heart later, then you can banish a Theosis and add it back. Whereas Big Bang you want in the deck, so you can banish it. Marcus, he can't use the Rise Heart again. It's a bit of a strange effect. You can only use it on the turn it's summoned, because most of the time you just XYZ with it straight away. That's kind of the point. But I guess it means if it sticks, then you can't use it again, which has actually happened here, which is a very uncommon thing to see. But
you know what an uncommon thing to see is resolving the effect of Dimension Shifter on turn number 3.
That is true, actually. That is really weird. It's very because you have to have no cards in your graveyard. So, and even if you've used like 1 Dimension Shifter, that immediately goes to the graveyard.
Here's that Theosis interaction you pointed out.
Yeah, exactly. So not the most common way of getting it, but if you use Shifter and then use Theosis. I'm kind of confused here. What card Marcus drew? It must have been the Theosis. I think he was just holding the Shifter, you know? Because,
you think so?
Yeah, well, there's no way he wouldn't have activated Theosis if it was in his hand last turn.
Yeah,
so it must have been the...
but the thing is, when
it must have been the Theosis he drew, and he was just holding on to the Shifter.
But it's turn 2 and you have Fenrir, do you not just activate Shifter to insulate it against Valor? Which you know they play from game 1, right?
I mean, if your opponent's played literally no cards, one of the cards you might be worried about is Gamma. So I guess like you don't need to do anything if your opponent's not going to make you do anything. But I don't know. I mean, we could ask him about it and see like why would you hold shifter? That's my guess. That like it was. I mean, I might be wrong, but I can't see any reason to hold a Theosis in your hand, right?
I think Marcus is close to winning this game here. He has already done half his life points in damage.
He is very close to winning this game here.
Just with attacking with some dudes.
Yeah, really. Short of that being like a set Marshmallow, I think it's.
Okay, now that would be a card.
That would be.
Is there a Cyberse Marshmallow?
I have no idea if there's a Cyberse. I mean, it could be big-eyed. Like, there's not that many monsters that can survive being
Okay, Diablosis. Oh, he just wants to see his extra now.
It's like, now I will actually see what you're playing.
All right. Louis, show me that extra. And hitting, I guess...
I didn't even see. He hid it from us. And Louis also hiding it from us. That's very rude. We should give them a word afterwards and say, look, you need to show the cards a little bit to the camera, please.
Yeah. We should hand them both a warning. Just a personal one, though.
Yeah.
All right, attacks over a set Ghost Bell.
And that is a lot of damage.
That's just going to be the end of the game, and that was a 8-minute 2-0.
You got a feel for Louis there. He really didn't draw how he was hoping to.
No. To be fair, I think he did open quite well game one. It's just Marcus had everything in response to that direct counter.
Yeah. And so, maybe it would have been a different game one, if Louis had gone first, but...
Yeah, no, that is true. I suppose that kind of is a testament to